Call the Monday, May 10th, 2021 Laporte School Board meeting to order. Please rise to the pledge of allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call. Secretary Arnold.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mrs. Marie is absent this evening. She's notified us prior. Mrs. Shannon,
Present.
Mrs. Jan,
Present.
Mrs. Rhonda,
Present.
Vice President Sherry,
Present.
President Mark,
Here.
and myself, Sixth President, one absent.
All right, thank you. Is there any public comment?
No, sir.
Next, we have the consent agenda, but we do have before us 4 additions that were, additional personnel recommendations to be added, which would require a motion. I'd entertain a motion to approve these, adding these to the consent agenda.
Mr. President, I'll make a motion to add these to the current consent agenda.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All right, seeing none, all those in favor of adding these 4 to the consent agenda signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? That passes, those are added. Next, we have the consent agenda, which includes the approval of the minutes of the April 12th school board meeting, financials for ratification and approval May 10th, treasurer's report from April, the merchant card processing agreement for the child care software program for billing, memorandum of understanding between Laporte School Corporation and Michigan City Area Schools, agreement for coverage of social worker at Kessling Intermediate Campus beginning April 19th, and personnel recommendations and travel requests. I entertain a motion to...
I would like to ask a request before we do that. I would like to pull off the personal recommendations number 47 to vote on that separately as a board.
Okay, so we'll pull out 47, but we'll proceed on with everything but 47. So I'd entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Nay? That was an aye, by the way, not an aye. All right, now we'll vote on just item number 47 from the personnel recommendations. Is there a motion to approve number 47?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay?
Nay.
I'm actually abstaining. I'm not going to be voting.
So, hold on, that's,
I should abstain as well.
Pardon?
If she's going to abstain, I should abstain if we're going to go with the players on the team.
so Rhonda, you're abstaining. And you
I should, yes?
also? Okay. All right, so that would be then, Shannon, I think you're an aye, right?
Aye.
Jan, I think you're a nay?
Why don't you just have a roll call vote, Mr.
Oh,
President?
okay, yeah, I'm sorry, yeah, that's a good idea. Let's, Secretary Arnold, can we do a roll call vote, which we just would go down the list?
Okay. Mrs. Shannon,
Aye.
Mrs. Jan,
No.
Mrs. Rhonda,
Abstain.
abstain. Vice President Sherry,
Abstain.
abstains. President Mark,
Aye.
aye. And myself, aye.
Okay, so I have 3-1. So Mr. Kaminsky, just.
How many
got some-
abstained?
Two.
Passes.
It does pass?
It does.
Okay. All right. So with 3 ayes, 1 nay, and 2 abstentions, it does pass.
It does pass.
Out of 6 attended.
That is correct.
Okay. All right, motion passes.
Could I make a comment just
Oh.
to add on to that? I would like to make public to, who's ever listening about why I am voting no on this position. I felt there needed to be more discussion before we made this decision. It came to the board and decided that that wasn't necessary, and I could not make an affirmative decision because of that. So I do want people to know that, what my stand is on that. So, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Celebrity.
I'll make a comment. I was
Oh,
just
sure.
abstaining because, like I said, I respect every board member's opinion, and I do have a son that does participate in basketball, so I just thought it'd be best to not vote.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Spence.
And I as well. I have children in the program.
All right, thank you, Ms. At-Large.
Unless I can be positive about a yes, and it's best that I abstain.
All right, thank you. All right, so that, that motion on number 47 does pass. Next, we'll move on to the superintendent's report. Mr. Francisconi?
Yes. If we can hold up for just for a second, we do have, with having that vote passed, we do have a new basketball coach here at LaPorte High School, and we're excited about that. Appreciate your support. His name is Jordan Heckard. He's going to be here in a minute, walking in, and I'd like to introduce him to you, of course, and then certainly the public. So we'll do that this time. And then, Ben, do you have something here that we want to welcome him with? So again, step forward, please, Jordan. Jordan Heckard, welcome to LaPorte. Looking forward to working with you. We have a little slice for apparel for you to get you started here today. And then, if you could, have anything to say to the community, looking forward to working with you and meeting you.
Yeah, with my wife Megan, Charlie, and Ava, we left our 1-year-old Henry at home. He's teething, but he's with the grandparents tonight. I just want to say thank you guys very much for this opportunity. We are so excited to get this chance, and you know, I really just respect the heritage, the basketball heritage here in this great community, and can't wait to add the next chapter. So really looking forward to getting started.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome
Appreciate
again.
it. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Good luck. Thank you. On to the superintendent's report. At this time, first things first, I'd like to recognize that once again, we're a beneficiary of student artwork, specifically at this time, Heilman and Kingsford Heights. And so as you walk in the front door, saw some fish and some different 3D artwork, talented students at Kingsford Heights and Heilman, as well as their teachers. So thank you, students and staff. We did have throughout the course of this school year, we had one of our staff members initiate what we thought was a great idea, is that we have a teacher of the year, and that we recognize one for both elementary and then at secondary level. And so it was a by the teachers, initiated by them, supported by them, and certainly supported by us. So at this point in the school year, we had a process. We had a number of teachers that were nominated, and then a committee specifically designed of community members, not school members, school employees, to recognize all the candidates that were put forward, and then ultimately select a Teacher of the Year award. And so with that, we had, again, 2 winners this year. I'd like to introduce the first to you, and that is Bonnie DeWolf from the Newport Middle School. Bonnie, congratulations to you. After Bonnie, she's been recognized once already, but she's got an official plaque. So
Thank you.
congratulations to
Thank
you.
you.
We're proud of you. You deserved it.
Thank you. Thanks so much. Thank you.
Go a step farther and say that Bonnie, for the first time, has stepped back into her old classroom, which was right here. Yeah, so
Yeah.
congratulations.
And it looks great. It really does. Very nice.
She's been one of our stellar teachers for a long time, and she deserves a recognition. So congratulations.
Thank you, and thank you, everyone. Yes.
Our second winner from the elementary level is Helen Kremke. Helen works at Indian Trail and has worked at a number of our elementary schools throughout her career here. And so her, once again nominated initially by her peers and then voted in by the community members. Helen Kremke. Helen?
Thank you, everyone. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
This time I'd like to provide some information about COVID updates, both in the corporation, the county, as well as plans that we have in moving forward. At this point, we are in the orange as a county. We've been in the orange as a county for a number of weeks now, probably 4 or 5. It's looking to be orange again for this coming week. Specifically, what's keeping us in orange are the number of cases in the county per 100,000, and that has been, it's on the rise overall for the last few weeks. But with that, the percent positivity has been below 10 or just above 10, which is keeping us in the orange. But as we move to 3 weeks left in the school year, 3 full weeks, including this week, and working into summer, at this point, in looking at the numbers, we have the support in the data and support from the recommendations from the Department of Health and Department of Education to move to what will be a 5-day-a-week schedule if we were to go to red. The week-to-week has not really been something that we were able to establish any stability with. There's always a concern about making those changes. We don't believe we'll go to red or have to within the next 3 weeks, but as we work in the next school year, we're going to plan 5 days of instruction, look at the data to say if we have certain areas of the corporation that have high numbers of positivity cases, we will work on an individual basis to either close classrooms, shut down departments, shut down schools, versus looking at the color code regardless of the numbers and reduce the number of days instruction. Now again, it's important for us to note that we will be offering choices again next year as we did this year regarding in-person instruction. So if there are comfort levels that are outside of those limits, then people can exercise their opportunities. We're going to have information on the website that supports why now, why are we changing this now. But again, going into summer school with a 4-day week, going into a very shortened schedule. If we were to go to red, that was previously 3 days. We don't want to disrupt any more than we need to, especially given the numbers that we have. If you look at just last week, for example, last full week, we have 11 schools, and we had basically only 3 of those that had any positive cases, and those were Hanley, Kessling Intermediate School, LaPorte Middle School. We had 4 out of the 11. And so what we're getting at is those rest of them had 0. And to go week to week and shut down schools that have no positive cases with our previous methods that we had doesn't really make sense to us, given especially the support that we have, again, to be in instruction in person 5 days a week. So again, we'll have that information, some information on our website with the support, with links to our data, with links to the CDC, links to the Department of Health, which outlines what the parameters are for different phases. Questions or comments regarding that? That concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Francisconi. Next, the elementary assistant superintendent's report, Mr. Tomino.
All right, good evening, everyone. Again, want to recognize the teachers and congratulate them on an outstanding job. I want to thank Erin Parker as well. Erin did a lot in that process. She even went out and got part of our community members to help go through the application packet, so we want to thank her and recognize her for that. Summer childcare will run June 14th to July 29th, Monday through Thursday, 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. Rates are going to stay the same, $20 a day. Summer program is going to run out of the ESC Boston site. Breakfast, lunch, and snack are provided. We're going to be having planned activities for the kids and look forward to moving the child care program here at the ESC. During the week of May 10th, this week, we are having the Indiana State Police Internet Task Force join us. All our schools are going to be presenting on internet safety through Zoom, through our students, and then we have a special staff presentation after school and a parent community presentation in the high school performing arts center. So we want to invite parents to come out to that. We've had them in the past. It's excellent. The challenges online, the safety concerns online, those are always changing. Social media, different things are evolving, and so we want to make sure we keep up on that. And so we appreciate the state police coming to help us present on that. In Guaranteed and Viable Curriculum, COLGAT testing has started in our district. COLGAT testing is a part of our high ability plan and how we recognize kids in language, arts, and math for high ability. We use the NWA scores, so if kids score a certain percentile in NWA, they get invited to participate in the COLGAT test at grades kindergarten 2 and 4. So that process has started, so we will be identifying our high ability learners here in the next month. We are wrapping up I-Learn testing this week and IM testing, so a lot of makeup tests going on right now, but our kids, our teachers did an outstanding job with it. We have high participation rates. The goal is to have a 95% participation rate, and we were getting close to that. So we're going to hopefully get everybody here the rest of the week and finish strong. Our fourth grade students are visiting the Kessling campus May 17th through the 21st to meet with the intermediate staff, go through a tour of the building. The counselors and the teachers are going to give a special presentation, answer student questions, just help them feel more comfortable in that transition. So we're excited about that. Later on this month, our fourth graders are going to be recognized for their special recognition celebration, and following last year's lead, we're going to be doing alternative recognition programs. We're avoiding large groups in the schools, especially in the orange advisory level right now, so we're going to see a lot of drive-through, drive-up, outside recognition ceremonies for our fourth grade students. Last week, we had some special training by our instructional coaches, Jen Cochran and Brenda Britton, on our new dyslexia screening program. I've reported that to you earlier in the year that we use that for universal screening. Well, the program has a lot more features to it than just universally screening kids for dyslexia. It has some reading tutoring abilities, for lack of a better term, to help monitor kids' reading. It gives them a passage, the kids read it. It helps analyze their strengths and weaknesses, and then helps provide follow-up interventions for the teacher. So while we all would like the teacher to have one-on-one reading time with kids, it's not realistic from a time management perspective. So this program is something we're looking at. We haven't formally adopted it. We did adopt the universal screener. This is the next level. So our instructional coaches came and showed our principals how that worked. We're going to be piloting it in summer school. So hopefully if we get good results, we'll start using that next year. In goals and feedback, I want to just make a couple comments on our NWEA data. As you know, we give that at the beginning of the year, the middle of the year, and at the end of the year, and it's a key assessment that we use formatively just to monitor student growth. And there's a lot of talk about, you know, learning loss, COVID disruptions, how are the kids doing, what's the impact of being in remote learning for months and months, or what's been the impact of being in-person, remote, kids going back and forth. So I thought, as a group, we're going to try to study our NWEA data to try to make some sense of what is going on, because we read nationally what's happening, but I really wanted to look at our data to see it. So the principals and I have been going through our NWEA data and looking at it. So I just wrote down some comments here. It's very difficult to go through, Overall, changes in the testers and attrition contribute to non-normal assessment results. The student data sample from fall of 2019 to fall of 2020, all the way to winter of 2020 was very different, and that was due to different kids taking the test. Some were remote learning, some were withdrawn, some were, had concerns of COVID, so couldn't take the test, that sort of thing. So it's really hard to compare when you look longitudinally at each cohort across. So that's one of the outcomes, I guess, that we noticed. Like I said, test results were affected by students moving in and out of remote learning, in-person learning, as well as parents. We saw more parents choosing to opt out of testing this year. Seemed to be a little bit more of a trend in that direction. Overall, our students are demonstrating growth, but we did notice declines in the percentage of students meeting expected grade level standards. Growth achievement, as we looked across the board, was very uneven. So nationally, there were lower than average math gains, but here locally, our scores show that learning loss was more evident in language arts than in math. Kindergarten students showed the most achievement growth than all our other grade levels, and we need to remember that that data analysis is just looking at fall of 2019 to winter 2020. We now are going to be taking the last section of that assessment here in May, so we'll be able to add an element to it and then try to look across the board. But overall, very uneven, very spotty, hard to compare. Kids are making gains though, so we are happy about that, but hopefully we use those results, that information, for interventions like our summer school program that we're planning right now. We're doing some after-school remediation tutoring in our title buildings right now. That's the data that we would use to guide our efforts and next steps forward. And that concludes my report.
Thank you very much, Mr. Tonical.
Thank you.
Next, Secondary Assistant Superintendent's report, Dr. Larson.
Thank you, Mr. Kozier. It is the end of the year testing, and at the high school we have our AP, our advanced placement testing, which started last week and goes through the end of this week. Those are the AP exams that assist our students in earning college credit, so we wish them well with those. Proud to announce today that the high school has identified who the valedictorian and salutatorian will be. And this happens sometimes, but this year we have co-valedictorians, exact tie for valedictorian, and that co-valedictorian status will go to Sophie Sorg and Jillian Maudlin. So we want to congratulate them. And then our salutatorian this year will be Laramie Lilly. So the girls ruled this year with valedictorian and salutatorian, but we want to congratulate them. And Mr. Albert is working on having banners displayed at the courthouse and a press release for those students as well. And commencement is quickly upon us, a month from today, actually, on June 10th at 7 o'clock. We hope for beautiful weather like we have today so that we can have that outside on the football field once again. So I think Mr. Tonigal mentioned we're in the process of scheduling and creating our summer school that you approved last month, and so applications and invitations went out to our families and students at the secondary, and we are scheduling students into those classes. This will be our first year for summer school at the intermediate campus as well, so we will have 5th through 8th grade students also participating in person for summer school this year. On the calendar as well, on May 24th, we have the Learn Today to Excel Tomorrow banquet. We will be having that at the high school in the cafeteria at 6:30 on the 24th. That is for our top 10% seniors, and also our Learn Today to Excel Tomorrow inductees. The LPHS athletic department is again hosting athletic physicals for our current 8th grade through 11th grade students, and that will be starting next Monday. They can get that done. Had a busy weekend last weekend. Thankful that the local health department approved the high school's plan for prom, and we had just around 200 students at the Civic walking the red carpet Saturday night and enjoying their prom. So very thankful that we were able to provide that to them, and thankful also to Mrs. Lebo and Mrs. Rice and all of the staff that helped to make that a reality for those students. The high school also held a blood drive, which we had not been able to do for some time. And they were able, my notes say, to generate 40 pints of blood, so, and 25 new first-time donors. So we are very appreciative of that, as was the local Red Cross. We had our own hiring fair at the high school a couple of weeks ago, and we are partnering with LEAP to do their Ready to Work hiring fair at the Civic on May 26th. That will be from 3 to 6 o'clock, but we will focus on our seniors and helping them to get there for any available positions in the community. At the middle school, our ag classes and our FFA club at the middle school held their annual petting zoo last Friday. So if you drove by and saw horses, chickens, goats, dogs, I don't know what else they had out there, but it's a very exciting day for our students to bring some of their animals, and even our teachers have brought some of their animals before as well. At the middle school, as you know, we offer many electives for our students. We started that when we created the intermediate campus, and so our leadership staff there has been participating in professional development to learn an additional wing to Skyward to help them with that multi-level scheduling, so they're able to schedule kids into teams as well as schedule them into their electives. Our middle school will be hosting their art show, first annual art show on May 26th from 5 to 7:30 p.m. So we would invite you to come out and support our art students. And as well, they are planning for their spring music program, so we will send you some dates for that. As Mr. Tonigal said, our fourth grade students will be visiting Kessling next week to get a feel for what the intermediate school will be like, and we are looking at planning the same type of thing for our 8th grade students going into the high school, so that they can get a feel for what it will be like going into the high school. On May 17th, the 5th grade students will be participating in conservation days at Kessling Park. They used to go to the local parks for that, but the LaPorte County Park Department has partnered with them, and they will be doing a lot of that at Kessling Park this year because of COVID. So we are happy about that. And then lastly, Kessling Intermediate School was part of a safety audit through the Indiana Department of Education this year, and they usually do an on-site visit. This year they did a Zoom audit, and we passed with flying colors, as they say. So I'm very thankful for the work that the safety team there has done, and also the leadership of Mr. Wilson, making sure that everything is in order for our students and staff regarding safety. So those are all of my announcements. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Larson. Next, we have the Assistant Superintendent of Business and Operations report, Mr. Hunt.
Thank you, President Kosher. This evening I want to start off by recognizing Lori Chambers as part of your personnel recommendations. She is retiring after 20 and a half years of service. Our food service department, she is at Kessling Intermediate, and again, I wish Lori nothing but the best in her endeavors in her retirement. Secondly, this evening I wanted to come back and discuss some of the legislative updates. The session did end. It didn't actually close. It's at recess, but one item that has to pass by law is House Enrolled Act 1001, which is the annual or the biennial budget. If you recall, it's kind of been a crazy ride to say the least as we've gone through this. I go back to November when we started to take a look at revenue forecasts. We thought maybe the best case scenario to that would be that we would freeze or have a budget freeze. That's what we were hoping for. Then December rolled around and seen some of the revenue coming in and said, okay, there's a little bit of hope, there's some growth there. And so we were kind of planning on a little bit of growth as far as the budget was concerned for education. And then the April 15th, the forecast, it took me by surprise. It was a $2.4 billion more in revenue at that time that they anticipated. That's 3 times the amount that the December 2020 forecast had presented. And so by that, it opened up some things for, obviously, the budget and moving forward. And so what I wanted to do to this evening with the board is to kind of go through what some of those increases would be. The foundation, again, remember the foundation is the amount per pupil allotment that we receive at the ADM count that we have. And that is increasing 5% to $59.95 in fiscal year 2022. And in fiscal year 2023, it's increasing 4% to $62.35. Again, this was a big jump, a lot more than what we had anticipated. Complexity grant, it is also increasing. Recall that the complexity is made up by SNAP and TANF for direct certifications, socioeconomic driven. And it is increasing in fiscal year 2022 by 2.7% to that complexity amount of $37.75. And then in fiscal year 2023, it's going to remain the same. There were no changes in the honors grant amount. Special education, this was a big one, and normally we have not seen any type of increases in special education. It very rarely happens. There was an increase of 5% for fiscal year 2022, and in fiscal year 2023, there is a 10% increase. Communication remains the same at $500 per pupil. But obviously this is a significant increase to the budget. These components here make up, with the exception of, we do not have the CTE, or college and technical or career readiness, is not part of this. But going back to special education, in fiscal year 2022, severe amount per pupil is $9,614. And this is in addition to the ADM or the foundation amount that we do receive per pupil. And then in fiscal year 2023, it increases to $10,575. Moderate in fiscal year 2022 is at $2,415 and increases to $2,657 in fiscal year 23. And the preschool is at $3,150 in fiscal year 2022, and it's $3,465 in fiscal year 2023. So obviously large increases as far as our what I call the basic grant, or the allotment from the state, is made up. A teacher appreciation grant remains at $37.5 million, and that's been, again, the same that what's been in the last couple of years. Non-English speaking grant is at $27.5 million per year, which is a $5 million increase over the previous budget. And then broadband grants. So as far as obviously distance learning is concerned, or what we've had to do virtually because of the pandemic, the broadband grant is at $250 million, which is an increase of $150 million, what we are currently in as for the current budget. I will say this, that Choice Scholarship, that is something that I have been briefing the board on. If you recall, that Choice Scholarship were the amounts of those, what we call the debit cards, for those individuals that were doing the homeschool or doing their own route for education. That was House Bill 1005. So what happened with House Bill 1005, it actually got absorbed by House Bill, or HEA 1001, which is part of the biennium budget. So there was not much of a hearing as far as that was concerned. But what it does do, just for the board's knowledge, it's going to expand 300% of free and reduced lunch income eligibility of what we currently have. A family of 4 with an income of $145,000 is eligible for this. There's a 31.8% increase in fiscal year 2022 and a 16.1% increase in fiscal year 2023. So that did not go away. That is still part of now what is the budget, and I don't foresee that going away in the future. But it's not as large of a amount that we initially thought it was going to be, but nonetheless, that is still things that are moving away from public education, and obviously it is affecting our budget. One other item that, and again, this is for your knowledge, base. We have a teacher retirement fund, and there's a pre-96 savings plan. And what the state is doing is they are going to spend down that, not spend it down, but they're going to pay down that debt by $600 million. And the reason I'm saying this to you is that directly it does not benefit the public schools unless by the savings that they have in revenue that is freed up, then it would be put towards public education. And the reason I say this is because, if you do hear about this and out there in the public and have for your benefit an understanding of what's going on with pre-96 savings. There was a bipartisan support of House Enrolled Act 1001. The House voted 96-2. And in this particular, in the House, the 2 were Republicans that voted against it. And the Senate voted 46-3, and Democrats were the ones that voted against that in the Senate. But very much a lot of praise from my understanding and who I've spoken to down at the state as far as the budget's concerned. And again, it was a nice surprise, and it's going forward. It is going to, we'll see, pay some big dividends for all the public schools in the state of Indiana, and obviously especially here in LaPorte. One other item I did want to mention too, because again, Mr. Arnold has brought this up, I brought this up, but Senate Bill 333 was a bill which was the school board per diem that did die. And then House Bill 1186, which is the early graduation. I do bring this to the board's attention because the hope was that if they were going to pass 1186, it would allow those that took early graduation to still be counted on that second count or that spring count, and that bill died. So that's not going to be the case. And then House Bill 1367, which was the school corporation disannexation. If you recall, we were talking about John Glenn School Corporation and South Bend School Corporation, the possibility of this happening, and that bill did die. But a lot happened, obviously, during the session, especially there at the very, very end. Again, when I started to listen to the overview of what was going to happen in House Enrolled Act 1001, I was, again, pleasantly surprised and encouraged. Number 3 on my report this evening, I just wanted to update the board as far as LaPorte Community School Corporation parking lots are concerned. 2 are going to be addressed this summer. The first is Riley. We've been talking about Riley, and they're on Weller. It's very crowded, and so we've been working with our architects to come up with a plan of a traffic flow plan there at Riley. They did come up with a plan. We have reviewed it. It looks great. Surveys have been done. The work is going to come in under $150,000, and I tell you that because the $150,000 is the threshold to do a public bid, so we've kept underneath that threshold. So we are currently getting 3 quotes, and then we will be bringing that as far as approval is concerned. But again, that will allow traffic flow to the east, which is, there's some green space to the east, and pull traffic off of Weller, and we have a route that would separate the traffic flow from the buses. We're very excited about that, and it should free up that traffic flow in that location. I know that's been a concern of ours, and I know some of the neighbors as well, but this is something that we're really excited about moving forward with this summer. The second one is at Kingsbury. We've had some difficulties at the intersection of 400 South and 75, and we have come up with a plan, again, working with our architects to pull the buses where they currently are into the to the east, which would be currently in the front of the school. There is a semicircle there, be able to pull our buses there, be able to load there, again, keeping traffic separated, and then be able to pull our traffic off of 475 in through what is currently the staff parking lot and loop them around where the buses currently are. Again, that will free up. I know at Kingsbury we have counted at the peak, it's 44 cars at one time in that area, and this will allow us 48 cars in this particular traffic flow. So we're excited again and encouraged by that. It's been an effort on everybody's behalf, from the principal and the staff at these buildings, as well as working with the architects, as well as working with administration here and moving forward. So again, those are the two that are going to take place. However, that doesn't mean that those are the only two parking lots in the corporation that need attention. There's one in particular that needs quite a bit of attention, but the reason we're not able to do it this summer, and that would be Heilman, is because working with architects again and looking at this spot, we think there's going to need to be some drainage and some different things that would need to take place there, which again, we think it's going to exceed that threshold of the $150,000, which we would have to bid that out. But when we do that, we're also going to take a look at the other parking lots as well. It has been quite some time since we've done any type of mill work on those particular parking lots and get them where they need to be. The thought on this is being able to issue a GEO bond, which will be coming up here in the fall, and that would be able to then fund, again, being able to sustain our debt rate where we are right now, but able to do this work, which would be the following summer in 2022. So again, I get excited about being able to move forward with these particular projects, but again, I wanted the board to be aware of kind of where we've been and where we're headed. So again, excited about the improvements and moving forward. The last thing on my report this evening is we had mentioned summer school. I'm going to mention summer feeding this evening. Summer feeding will start June the 14th, and it will go through July the 15th, and it will be Monday through Thursday. These are meals that would be provided, both breakfast, it's basically a bag and go, and for the breakfast, that it would be set down from 12:15 to 12:45 in the following locations: Riley Elementary, Kingsbury Elementary. Reason Kingsbury is that's not been able to be done in the past, but housing summer school there will allow us to do that. Heilman, LaPorte High School, Kessling Intermediate, and LaPorte Middle School. The current location we are here, which is the Educational Services Center, and in Kingsford Heights as well. So again, kudos to Cindy Vonder and her team in preparing for the summer feeding and being able to feed our kids during the summer months. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Hunt. You mentioned, it was great to hear all the grant changes. I mean, I know that was very early in your report, but, and you mentioned the CT, is CT not included in any changes, or is this something we expect to maybe hear?
Yeah, I didn't list that because realistically there weren't some changes in that particular funding as of yet. So I hope that does change, but right now that wouldn't be the case.
Okay. Still, I mean, it's still great to hear all the other
Yeah.
ones that's great news. So, okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Next is old business. We don't have any old business, so we'll move on to new business, starting off with 501, consideration for recommendation to approve the acceptance of grants, donations, gifts, and bequests. Mr. Francisconi.
Sure, thank you, President Kozer. Speaking of money in the form of grants, in front of you tonight is a grant we'd like for you to consider approving, specifically $25,000 that'll be has been granted to our LaPorte Federation of Teachers from the larger American Federation of Teachers, and that's for professional development for our teachers. So we're certainly appreciative of that and looking for your approval so that we can move forward with making good use of that.
Thank you. I've heard the recommendation. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second? Second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Motion passes, it's approved. Next is a consideration for recommendation to approve the memorandum of understanding between LaPorte School Corporation and North Shore Health Centers. Mr. Francisconi.
Yes, thank you once again, President Kozer. In front of you tonight is the most recent version of a memorandum of understanding between the corporation and North Shore Clinics. This has been reviewed by our council. Slight changes have been made according to recommendations from them. Key factors here, number one, this MOU is still, this takes us to the next level, but is still the final resolution to this, and contract would be contingent upon the North Shore Clinic's ability to secure the federal distinction that they need in order to provide our pharmacy free of charge for what would ultimately be most of the prescriptions for our staff. And so whenever they have their paperwork in to get that, and We expect that it will happen, but that we understand that their paperwork is backed up in Washington. But our ultimate goal, as you see on the proposed MOU, is September 1 to start that up. North Shore does have a pharmacy physical location that they've identified. It's over in Sagamore Center, specifically where the former, was it after hours walk-in health clinic used to be. So they're renovating that at this point. So they're moving forward. They'll provide labs and other auxiliary services there, which we wouldn't be able to offer in our staff clinic that we have set up at the high school. So any questions, I'd be glad to entertain. Other than that, we're looking for a recommendation to accept this.
We've heard the recommendation. Is there a motion to approve?
Make a motion to approve it.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second. Any discussion or questions? That's really a question really for Mr. Kaminsky. Is he any issue with us kind of moving forward with this at this time? Given that we're kind of still
To be
waiting.
bluntly honest with you, Mr. Kosher, my brother, who is a healthcare lawyer, is the one who worked on this. He gave his approval.
All right, okay. Thanks for sharing that. Yeah.
Mr. Francisco, I have
Yes.
a question. I didn't see anything specific in here about formulary management to ensure we're getting the best pricing on the pharmaceuticals with the pharmacy. Is that something you can make sure that we get? Because obviously, in order for it to be a benefit for our staff, there's got to make sure that the drugs being offered through the pharmaceutical is ones that we actually utilize. So formulary management is a huge portion of making sure it's actually a cost savings, not only for our staff, but also the school corporation. So making sure that that is part of the conversation, I think would make a lot of sense. Just because I'm familiar with the 340B direct program, and it doesn't specifically say that we have the ability to influence that, but I know that that's a key piece.
We have had dialogue about the formulary, and so we'll make sure we revisit that, especially at the time in which they solidify the fact that they have the distinction so that we can have the pharmacy. But thank you. We'll make sure we look into that.
Thank you.
Any other discussion or questions? All right, seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Motion passes. Next, we got the consideration for the recommendation to approve the memorandum of understanding between LaPorte School Corporation and the K-12 athletic feeder program. Mr. Tonigal?
Thank you, Mr. Kosher. In front of you for your consideration is a K-12 athletic feeder program MOU. It's a template, it's a formalized template to help promote our feeder system efforts, which we have discussed thoroughly with our athletic department at the middle school, the elementary school, and the high school, because feeder programs can have a lot of potential to significantly contribute to the overall success at our varsity level. I see a lot of potential from my perspective down at the lower levels, and so this it's a template because it's designed to be used across the board in various athletic teams and programs, and even non-athletic programs. You could use it in agriculture, FFA. We kind of do something similar with the County 4-H extension. So it's not limited to just athletics, but it defines a feeder system. And what I like about this template is it puts in writing what we talk about a lot, and a lot of the informal discussions that we have with feeder programs, and it outlines what do we expect of you, what do you expect of us, and it helps bridge some of that communication gap that has existed in the past. So we're looking to take the next step to formalizing our partners, and I could give you examples throughout the corporation. We do a lot of this informally. It's just not in writing, and a lot of this happens through email and phone calls, and there's a lot of different parties involved. We're looking to take that next step to formalize it. We think it can strengthen the efforts of our programming and can help our feeder programs, which exist to help kids develop. So I'm glad to answer any questions about it.
All right, we've heard the recommendation. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion or questions? I just comment, I know that this is sort of the concept that we've talked about kind of, I think, quite a few years back. I think several times, probably many of us have been approached by groups, organizations that try to maybe use some facilities, and it's always been this sort of back and forth struggle of like, well, they're, you know, are they really helping the LaPorte kids mostly, and looking at these kind of things. So I don't know, personally, I like the fact that it does formalize a lot of that, and in particular, it kind of does, to me, it looks like it helps to tie in both, you know, varsity coaching staffs with these programs to kind of pull them in together. So I like the idea of it.
Exactly. It allows for flexibility to recognize organizations that, you know, fully support the corporation's programs, all the way to organizations that compete against us. And so we, through the facility application process, have the ability to discern through discussion, you know, what are your goals, how much are you charging, what do you exist for? We can look at anywhere from a full waiver of charges all the way to a full charges per our facility rental plan, which is written into board policy. So it allows for that flexibility. I've gone through our board policy on just different policies, making sure that there would be nothing that would conflict. So I do think it gives us some potential to strengthen our partnerships that we've been working on.
I think it's got potential too to expand for some of the fine arts, music, dance, theater, those kinds of things as well, especially with the facilities that we have. I can see that being a nice opportunity as well.
Good point.
Any other discussion or questions? All right, seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? That passes.
Thank you.
Next, consideration for the recommendation to approve the LaPorte Community School Corporation auction of corporation property. Mr. Hunt?
Again, President Kosher, this evening before the board, I'm asking for your approval for the recommendation to hold an auction. We're going to do something a little bit different this time. Mr. Chizeski, who is the Director of Facilities and Maintenance, is working with Jim Listinsky, who has been our auctioneer in the past. We've done live auctions. We're looking at actually doing an online auction. So what we will be doing is going to the different facilities. We're taking pictures of the items that would be put up for auction. Then it would be an online auction, and we're looking at it between July 5th and the 7th. The great thing about this is that we would not have to bring all of those capital items to one location for the auction. Again, they would be able to be housed, and it would be the responsibility of those that would have won those bids in the auction to remove those items within a very short period of time. This also helps in the day of COVID-19 and reduce the number of people that may assimilate as far as an auction would be concerned. So we're very encouraged by this, and we'll see how things go this year as far as this is concerned. It does constitute an auction, so by law, for us to be able to dispose of capital items, by Indiana code, we do have to hold an auction if it does exceed the threshold of those individual items or a group of items. And so this, again, would suffice as far as a public auction is concerned. We will advertise this as to when this would be open, but again, we're encouraged by the method in which we're going to be holding this auction, and look forward to that happening again sometime early July. So at this time, I just ask that the board would approve the auction of the capital items for LaPorte Community School Corporation.
We've heard the recommendation. Is there a motion to approve the auction?
So moved.
Second.
Second. All right. Any discussion or questions? A quick question, kind of harkens me back to quite a few years ago when we auctioned a lot of items off, and then kind of we think later, oh my gosh, well, we got a program that basically like could potentially use these. I mean, what's the process we go through to ensure
that?
that?
That is a really, really, really good question, because what has happened is last year, if you recall, we were able to move into this facility here. We didn't have a lot of time. We did have some auction, but to your point, what we did was we kind of held off on some of those items like desks, chairs, file cabinets, those types of things, because we weren't exactly sure how or what was going to be needed at that point. So this last year, we've been able to kind of go through and look at all of these items to be able to, again, pinpoint those items that we would like to put up in the auction. And so, but we've also talked to Mr. Tonigal and Dr. Larson, principals, as to what type of programs they may have in their facilities and what they may need. And so that was the first thing that we did before, again, we are putting those items up for auction. So at that point, when the auction does occur, we have done our due diligence in making sure that we're keeping what needs to be kept. We will still keep some items here. This building has really helped us. We were lacking in storage across the corporation. We didn't have any room at all in any of our buildings. The third floor here has allowed us to have a space in which to have a storage location. But that also being said, there is quite a few items here that are just sitting there and not being used, or we don't have any of the potential of using. So at this time, that would clear out several rooms or spaces for us here.
So where does, once any revenue from the auction,
So what has to happen, any revenue has to go back to the source in which it was paid out of. So if it were capital projects funds that were used in which to purchase, let's say, desks or chairs, it has to go back to what is now our operations fund. The one in particular has to be food service, because food service is a federally funded program. And, federal funds are used in which to purchase those pieces of equipment. So we have those all tagged and obviously are accounted for. So we have to, first of all, go through the Fed program in which to let them know that we are putting these items up for auction. And that, again, those proceeds that are identified will then go back into our food service program.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Next is the consideration for the recommendation to approve the adoption of new curriculum materials for K through 12 social studies, world languages, and music. Dr. Larson.
Thank you. This is in partnership with Mr. Tonigal for our elementary as well, but this year's adoption process was for social studies mainly, but also because of COVID, we had some world language curriculum as well as some for our music department. And so we have that recommendation for us to get approval, and then we can move forward with the next step of calculating fees for our students for this material. We are trying to really go more toward curriculum materials because the original fee of textbook fees, this year especially, people say, well, wait, I didn't have a textbook, I had materials, but we still need textbooks, but we have a lot of online materials, so just kind of trying to update the language to curriculum materials, so that's what we are looking for your approval. We did have teachers, committees, teams that looked through, met with different companies, whether it was virtually or in person, reviewed the materials, and so the recommendations really come from the teachers who will be using these materials. Anything you'd like to add, Mr. Tonigal?
No,
Nope.
you did a great job.
Thank you. We've heard the recommendation. Is there a motion to approve? Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Any other business? All right, next we have board comment. I have one comment. I had the opportunity to go, or took the opportunity to go see the LaPorte Symphony Orchestra last month with my daughter, where we had one of the Once a Slicer, Always a Slicer award recipients, Gary, I believe it's pronounced Wado, who was a maestro, and I know he was at Juilliard School of Music, and I think the Boston Philharmonic, and it was just having seen, the sort of the picture, it kind of felt like someone who was a little bit sort of famous, and really very cool. It was a wonderful concert, and it was just nice to see someone who has been recognized by that program kind of come back to LaPorte and lead the symphony orchestra. So that was my comment. Any other comments? All right, seeing none, our next board meeting is June 14th at 6 p.m. I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
So
You have a second? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? All right, we're adjourned.